page 143, I believe. No, actually 144. And we're like 10 lines from the top, which it says, Omnam leklipas amolik einamo elis avoidazu. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 lines to the top, in middle of the page. All of the above, that a progression of order to eliminate the Yetzer Hara and the Nefesh Abamis in various ways, beginning with being sensitive to spirituality, to Ruchnius, that Ruchnius should be the dominant force in your life, and hence there will be an Oir Eliki, a godly light that will shine into you and therefore help you overcome issues and be in a different good place. Says the Rebbe, Omnam, however, Liklipas Amalek, Einamo Elis Avodazu. Wow. When it comes to Amalek, dealing with it rationally doesn't help. So you have to have a new approach. Ki Amalek oimid neged gilu oir eliki v'soyne lelikus. Chevra, put quotations around this and never forget it. Amalek opposes godly revelation. By the very nature, Amalek is an opponent of godly revelation. God in the backyard, God in the underground, God in the skies, fine. But open godliness, no way, Jose. And look at the next words. V'soynei lelikus. And he actually hates this type of godliness. So therefore, negotiating with this Amalek mindset is simply a waste of time, and we all know it gets you more into trouble. I'm sure everyone has had that experience in various ways, where you think you could negotiate something, and at the end you realize you made it worse for yourself. Because you're dealing with an enemy. You're dealing with someone who is not neutral, but mixed up, but confused, and therefore vulnerable. If you clarify the issue for him or her or it, you will succeed. They don't care. You could talk to you blue in your face, and they have one thing in mind: you are my enemy, and I'm going to destroy you. The Rebbe says, Avram, this is the difference, the core difference, Hillel, between the nation of Amalek and the 7 nations. Because after all, what the Torah says, Yonason, that you should eliminate and obliterate Amalek is very harsh. And all the other nations who are also opponents of the Jews, Moshe, Hashem gives them hope. Dar Revi, Yeshuvu Heina, the 4th generation, they'll do tshuva, Amoin, and Moav, and different things. When it comes to Amalek, there's no hope. Says the Rebbe, I'll tell you why. We need to look at the source of Amalek. What's the source? The Hamidus Rois. When you talk about bad character, Midas Rois don't oppose the goodness within godliness. Ki im kol inyonim hu sheim mamshichim es ha'odem latoiv the gashmius. Midas Rois says like this. Listen, one second, Moshe. Midas Rois says like this. Bad character says, look, rather than putting the focus of your nice part on spiritual and holy matters, put it on gashmius. Indulge more in gashmius, pleasure yourself more. So it doesn't fundamentally seek to obliterate goodness. Midas Rois doesn't mean that the midah is not valuable. The midah is valuable, but rather than putting it into tov, put it into ra. Yes, Moshe.
Rabbi Dalvin, can we just go back for just 1 second, because I'm not sure if I caught this. You said to put in quotations, Ki Amalek Omed Neged Gilu or Elokei V'Sonei Le'Elkus.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. What is and what follows? Dezel ha'hefresh ben Amalek l'zayin amamin. What is amamin?
Nations, for the word Am Yisrael.
Okay.
You know, the Rebbe makes Moshe this blanket statement: hate Amalek. It opposes Elikus. So the Rebbe now, hey, I made this bomb statement. I have to now explain it. So he goes on to start explaining it. And what is he saying? So when you talk about a midah ra, right? Gaiva, taiva, kina, are the very core feelings there wrong? The very core, no, it's misplaced. So the Rebbe says, when you talk about midas rose, you don't have to obliterate them. You don't have to hate them. You have to channel them. Instead of having taiva for whatever, have taiva for healthy things. Instead of having jealousy and greed, have jealousy for learning to know more Gemara than your friend, more Hasidus. Place the midah in the right place. That's what he says in this next upcoming line that we just read. Let's continue. Val derech ha-behema. The Rebbe says, take a behema, because it's called nefesh habamis. Val derech ha-behema she'ena menagedes el ha-seichel. Does a behema oppose logic? No. Kiyim, rather, shenimshicha achri tzorchi haguf bilvad. The behema says, logic, stay on the sideline. I want to be an animal now. Right? We always repeat. Aristotle says, yes, usually I'm a professor at Harvard and Cambridge and Columbia, but today I'm a behema. Just give me an hour for it to be a behema. Mashenkein klipas amole. Conversely, the force, the extraneous energy called Amalek, who menaged lelukus, its modus operandi, its very core is one thing only. I oppose godliness. Not I don't like the way godliness is being channeled. The whole notion of godliness, I despise and I hate. And what is now the style that Amalek uses to despise and hate godliness? Hu beha'oza. It's with chutzpah, the chutzpah gedola, audacity. There is a way of saying I hate you or indicating that, but hiding it, like I told you last week with the krum of the nose, the making of the nose. You don't say anything, but just you move your nose to the right or the left, and you floored the person. Right? You're not going to say anything. But that's not with chutzpah, Velvel. Amalek is a chutzpanyak. What's a chutzpanyak? A chutzpanyak is someone who is outspoken and will share their animosity for godliness and be pompous about it. That's what the Rebbe says here. Such an enemy, there's no other choice except elimination. And this is so important because we convince ourselves many times that it's not this way, and it's a big mistake. Now, it doesn't mean to say that we should go being judgmental and being quick to say, oh, that's an Amalek, and that's just a regular one of the 7 nations. That's a midah ra that can be harnessed and channeled, and this is an Amalek that can't. Before one points the finger, one needs to really be sure of that and really discuss it and bounce it off others. But sometimes there's something called a gut feeling. And I share with you things that you are all aware of, that if you have that gut feeling, you're going to avoid a lot of heartache and not waste a lot of time, because otherwise you can go on and on and on, and it'll schlep out and schlep out, and at the end you come back to the same point in the circle where you realize it's a waste of time. On one hand, we're told, try, help, but the astute person, the person who's really sharp and focused and really plugged in right, can smell from the very beginning if there's hope here or there's no hope. And if you do that, you avoid a lot of problems, a lot of heartache. If not, you won't, then you'll come to that same determination at the end. So negotiating with our enemies on the other side is a pure waste of time. Now, I'm not proposing what, Mayor Kahani and others suggest. That's not, my department. But, there's a but. It's not far off. It's not far off. The question is, what's the style should be used? Should you go out and do what, Goldstein did on Purim? Take the gun and just shoot him up? And there was a reason for it, I understand. Or should you, get rid of them in different ways, like the Mossad does? But the point is that stay away, and I want to say, you don't have to be really the world's greatest scholar to come to this realization. If you just use your brains a little bit and you get all the shtick and stuff out of the way, it'll be clear to you. It'll be so clear who you could work with and who you can't work with. And then go. Don't turn back. My wife says different. My grandkids say different. My rabbi says different. My rabbi says different. Go. It's easier said, but that's the script. That's the script, and if you live with that script, I think you'll be happier. I think we'll accomplish more. We need to weed out the Amalekites. There's no room for Amalek, none. And that's why Hashem says in the Torah, destroy Amalek. It doesn't say in the Torah, negotiate with Amalek. Destroy Amalek. And that's what Shaul HaMelech was punished and lost the kingship, because he negotiated. And he said, you know what? There's so many sheep and so much cattle, and we could use it for ourselves. I'll get rid of them and take that. And maybe the wife and children, I'll leave them, have mercy on them. Don't play God. If God says get rid of everybody at this point, that's what needs to be done. And I know this is so far from Western thinking, and this is not coming, because I'm a radical. This is coming because this is what Torah says. You can jump up and down, backwards and forwards. This is what Hashem says in the Torah. And if you can't accept this in the Torah, then there's something wrong with what you do accept. That means you're choosing and picking based on your decisions. Now, again, it doesn't mean go out and shoot and kill and be a hater. No. But it means in concept, there are situations where there's no negotiating. Let's continue, because we could get off on a tangent more, and I don't want to. Here the Rebbe says a beautiful thing, Chevra. You're going to love this. This is the difference between someone who we call a simple glutton, a Baalei Taiva, a lustful person, to someone who does something lahachis in spite, to make others angry, to make God angry. The Honorayim we see, but TV the Rebbe discusses now the psychological condition called being a porikol, being a wild animal, doing what you want, rejecting civility and order. There are some types of porikol who reject obedience. They despise and hate people who are Torah people and servants of Hashem. Remember the Maamar said in Riga in 1934, the culture of the time in Europe is and also in America, one second, Moshe, you had a lot of these type of people. They hated from Jews. Okay? So the Rebbe says there's one type of enemy that hates B'nai Torah and Ovdei Hashem, and therefore they reject it all. They say, forget it. Moshe, I'll get back to you in a second. Hold your question, please.
I just want to ask about the word pork, the expression that the uses porke all.
Porke comes from the word lifrok, to dismantle, to remove. All means the yoke. There's Kabbalas all, Moshe? Are you with me? Kabbalas all means accepting the yoke, and the opposite of that is porek ol, or porke, plural. Porke is plural from poreko. So, these people that hate B'nai Torah and Ovdei Hashem, they cannot tolerate them. In Yiddish, Velvel. Can need fartrogen them. There's a word in Yiddish called fartrogen. In English it means stand. I can't stand him. I can't stand them Yirei Elokim. When they come in contact with a Yirei Elokim, one who fears God, their face turns red with anger. And listen to this. Look how the Rebbe is such a psychologist. He says, although from a human perspective, hanushiyut, it's not relevant to the person, he don't care to hurt him. In other words, he's not someone, Avram, that he's going to concoct a way to get to hurt this person. In other words, he hates what he's doing. He hates that he's a from Jew, but he's not going to bother him. Nevertheless, it doesn't change the fact that he cannot tolerate this type of person at all. And he holds himself back from meeting him, from encountering him. He has such a despise for what he represents that he says, I don't want to be next to you. Says the Rebbe, this is not particular and specific and individual hatred. It's an overall hatred. Being that he cannot tolerate as hasug. See the word there? The category called of Yirei Elokim. It's nothing personal. Did you ever hear that? It's nothing personal. Sounds familiar, right? It's nothing personal. I don't mean you in particular. Okay, you don't mean me in particular. You just mean the thousands of other people fall into this category. You can't tolerate the whole category. So, you're not going to go and inform on me. You're not going to go and then get me into trouble. Rabbi Soloveitchik, the Rav, when he came to Boston in the 30s, there was a lot of corruption in the meat business, in the kosher meat business. You're probably aware of it. This was true in Chicago, and Philly, and Boston, New York. It was connected with the mafia. I mean, it was a very, very unhealthy and unkosher business. And Rabbi Soloveitchik came, and he's not wearing his long beard, but he's a man who fears God, and he saw the corruption, and he's a Soloveitchik. He opens his mouth. And there were Rabbanim. He came in 1931, I believe, 31, 32. There were Rabbanim, rabbis who were there already from the turn of the century, and substantial Rabbanim, Talmidei Chachamim. But they were, excuse the expression, they were in bed with the corruption in different ways. One more, one less. But, it's flowing, it's going. Let it just go. Let it just go, And he's a Soloveitchik. He don't tolerate that. So he made a ruckus. He made noise. And he started, I think, giving his own hechsher. Hey, now it's money. Money. Talking about money now. He's taking away the hechsher from us. You know what they did? In the late 30s, I think going into the early 40s, they informed on him to the government, to the IRS, that he's doing tax evasion. Rabbi Soloveitchik, the Rav, is stealing from the government taxes. It was the furthest thing from the truth, because he's not that type of person. Not as a Soloveitchik, not as a Brisker. Brisker is straight. And he had to defend himself, and luckily, the judge was a Yid named Mr. Cohn. I have it's all in my book. I have many details. I wrote this up in my book on the Rav and the Rebbe. It's fascinating. And he was vindicated by the nick of his neck. He was about to be put into jail for tax evasion. What did it come from? The Sina Klolis. We don't mean anything particular against you, Rabbi Soloveitchik, but you're rocking the boat. You're coming here and you want to be more frum than we are? You're the new kid in the block. I don't care if you're a Soloveitchik. Go back to where you came from. Yes, Hillel.
I was going to say, this seems like a category of Sina Pratit. Very specific.
I hear you, but I'm making the point. I understand it was against Soloveitchik. I'm making the point that they were against those that were they considered to be too religious, too frum. Mm-hmm. Soloveitchik being one of them. If the Rebbe would have done it, they would have been. If you would have done it, or I would have been us. Anyone that was in a position of leadership and authority and scholarship, like a Soloveitchik, who opened their mouth, they were in a certain category. You're too frum for us. And this happened all over. I mean, I remind myself now, in the 1910s or 20s in New York, there was a situation like that, and with a Hasidic Rebbe, I think, who came over for a visit, and you had a lot of people come out, and someone smelled that he's going to, change things, and he all of a sudden died. And the excuse was he had a heart attack, or he had this attack or that attack. Ve'inenu, Hashem lokach. He ain't here anymore. And I spoke actually to a scholar, yes, to Schneier Lehman, Professor Lehman, a very fine Orthodox Jew and a real scholar. He told me that there are a few books, I forget now, where lots of these things are written up, where they were knocking off people in the 10s and 20s and 30s who opened their mouth because they didn't want to rock the boat, and just leave things as is. So this was, again, I'm telling you, I think the mafia was involved. So this was shady stuff going on. And unfortunately, some rabbis were also involved in this corruption. Okay, so this is a whole parsha that we don't like talking about, but we need to know that when the Rebbe says that there's a category, a sug of people who don't like Lomdei Torah and Oivdei Hashem, it's real. It's real. Let's for a moment break it down. I'm not sure if a group of Mea Shoram Hasidim would come into certain places in Efrat or Bet Shemesh or wherever where there's, more normal Jews. I'm not sure if they would really appreciate it. Let's call a spade a spade. So it's easy to say, okay, here we're talking about people who hate religious people, who hate Ovdei Hashem, Torah learners. I understand. But everything has another type of experience which has the same mindset. You understand? We're talking about a mindset. Okay, I'll give you just another example just to make sure it's crystal clear for all of you. In one of the shuls here in Borough Park, certain people came to the shul, and I saw myself how they were ignored. I saw it myself. Why? Because they did not sing the same song as the shul administration. I saw it. And so no one would say, oh, they hate that, because, oh, no. What I'm telling you, that deep down they hated it. Okay? You know, we live in this PR world, in this PC world, politically correct world, where we make our nice face from the outside, but really inside we harbor hatred. So Hillel, when you talk about, it was Soloveitchik in the 30s or 40s, it's Mea Shearim people, etc., and it's in Brooklyn, and the point is, this is why we need Mashiach, and this is why we need to have more Abbas Yisrael. You don't have to be like someone else, but what kind of hatred towards, because they have long payas, or maybe they don't smell exactly the same way, or look the same way, or they daven a different nusach, and this across the board, Sephardim versus Ashkenazim. Thank God there's been a lessening of that on some level, but these are issues. I don't have to tell you. You guys know. You're right there in the center of everything. So the Rebbe says here. Let's go back to the text. So the Rebbe says here that one category of enemy are those that have this sinna to the category, and therefore, the Yeshnam. Now he says there's another category. Ki'ilu shehem. There's a category, Sheim Baalei Taiva, they have Taivas, B'mita Maruba, an abundant of Taivas, V'hoilim l'moed, and they party lots, and they're frivolous, and they're scoffers. Uveshi ufasam, and their she'ifa. You know what she'ifa means, Yonason? And their Strebung is the Yiddish word. Velvel, Strebung. Hast du mal gehört von dem Wort Strebung? Strebung means their drive. English, drive. Uveshifosam, and their drive. Heim prutzim oid yoiser. They're more prutza. I don't got to tell you what that means, right? Avram. More, what's the English word for prutza? Come on. They're more ostentatious, more natsnias, to put it mildly. They're very open. Parut means to break open, to open. Mahasug the poike oil anal. Then the previous category of those that are parke oil, Moshe, again the word parke oil, those who reject the yoke, are quiet about it, quiet but deadly. These guys are open about it. Mikol Mokoim, says the Rebbe, yes, they are, but guess what? Einam soinim b'nei Torah v'im darshan. Their virtue is they don't hate the Torah study learners and servants of Hashem. So here we have an interesting phenomenon, and I always go back to when I was standing on 5th Avenue, 47th Street, as a 70-year-old bacher, asking Jews to put on tefillin, and one Jew and many thousands of people passing by, and some of them look at me and they say, "Stop with this antiquated tefillin and mezuzahs and Torah and Shabbos, get a life." And they go on. And then there are others that look at me and they smile. Oh, wow. So you think like, they're going to put on tefillin, and they just keep on going. And you say, "Reb Yi, Jew, come. They just keep on going. They ignore you. Who's worse? Says the Rebbe here. The one who ignores you has sinna belev. He really, that type of category really hates the tefillin, hates the Ovdei Hashem. The other ones who are arguing with you and belittling you, they don't have that sinna. They just are simply what we call Baalei Taiva. They want to have a good day. They want to enjoy a party. Leave me alone with all this stuff. I want to have a good drink, and that's it, man. Two categories. Both problematic, but there's a difference in the core resentment that one has and one doesn't have. We'll stop here and we'll continue to Shem tomorrow. But isn't this a good stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, this is... Yes.
My granddaughter is getting married tonight in New York.
Who is?
My granddaughter.
Mazel Tov. Where? In Muncie?
In Muncie, in Spring Valley.
Mazel Tov. It should be at Binyan Adiyad. Binyan Adiyad. Only Yiddish Nachas and Simchas. Thank you for sharing.
Mazel tov, Yonasan.
Positive, Jonas.
Very good.
Avram, what do you want to say, Avram? I see you want to say something.
Mazel tov to Yonasan.
Okay. 1 second. Okay, Chevra, we'll see everyone tomorrow. Have a great day.
Have a good day, everybody.
Bye,
Good
bye.
night.
Hey,
Take care.
take a bench.